If you like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. Ladies and gentlemen of Knucklehead Nation, welcome to the first ever inaugural episode of the Keep It Clean with Manny Robles show. I'm your host, the Fighter's Rep, with none other than my co-host who hardly needs an introduction, Manny Robles, right there on your camera. Coach Manny, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited, and I'm excited to be doing this with you, George. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Likewise, Manny. You know, first off, I appreciate you agreeing with me to join me on this project. We're going to be aiming to go live every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific on the Keep It Clean podcast with Coach Manny Robles. But before I go forward with that, Coach Manny, I wanted you to kind of, in a nutshell, tell people what you've done in your career. Let them know about your credentials a little bit. I mean, of course, I know and the boxing fans know, but people that might not be huge boxing fans, give them a little bit of a summary of what you've done in your career so far.
It's been 40 years pretty much that I've been involved in boxing, both as an amateur fighter, professional fighter, and obviously as a coach now. So it's been a long, fun ride. I've done, a lot of people know me from a long time ago. Call me an old young dinosaur, if you will. I've seen a lot of people. I've met a lot of interesting people, obviously through boxing, visited a lot of interesting places, been all over the world. Again, met boxers, fighters, promoters. So I'm, this is my passion. This is what I love. And again, like I said, then what better way to bring my knowledge to people through this show.
I love it, Manny. And, people know you in more recent history through your association, of course, with Andy Ruiz, where you took him to the mountaintop in the heavyweight division. You beat Anthony Joshua. But, I mean, you've also trained and continue to train many of the world's best fighters, including, Terrell Gausha. Now you've got Prince Charles Martin, who's, knocking at the door of the IBF with his win over Gallo Negro. Kind of give me a couple other names, perhaps, that people may be familiar with, guys that you've trained in your career so far.
Yeah, sure. Well, this doesn't stop, obviously. I began with my dad coaching, that is. My dad took me to the boxing gym for the first time many years ago at a very well-known gym. It's Azteca Gym in the city of Val. That's a place where a lot of famous fighters have, went through. Oscar de la Hoya, for one, Julio Cesar Chavez, Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, some of the greats, Hector, Macho, Camacho. So I actually came out of that gym, and it's a landmark for boxing here in the city of LA, and so forth and so on. I obviously coaching with my father. Taught me everything I know. Some of the great fighters that we've been able to work with have been fighters like Martin El Gallito Castillo, Israel El Magnifico Vasquez, two-time world champion Reggie Johnson, middleweight light heavyweight champion of the world, Enrique Sanchez, Hector Quiroz, Chivata Flores, a boxer which I feel should have been the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world, Javier Mora. Great Mexican fighter back in the day, great heavyweight, like I said, and then obviously myself and the amateurs being able to work with Mr. Michael King in the All-American heavyweights, also a coach of the WSB World Series of Boxing, the LA Matadors, obviously being an assistant coach, head coach of the USA National Amateur Boxing Team, and yeah, it's just like I said, it's now obviously my own boxers as in the professional ranks. I've been able to work with countless boxers from all over the world, and continue to up until this day. You all know obviously Andy Ruiz and Oscar Valdez, Jesse Magdaleno, Michael Conlon, Now you mentioned Charles Martin, Dominic Brazil, Terrell Boucher. Now with that Abner Maris, I mean, so many boxers. Though we just have Anthony Herrera, which is qualified to the USA national team, and we're waiting for things to get back to normal so he can go to the Olympic qualifier and possibly qualify to the Olympic Games, and
Wow, wow.
we'll be able to add another Olympian to our resume.
Well, congrats on that. I mean, that's no easy feat to make it that far.
Absolutely not. We continue to work with both amateurs and pros, and we always go back to our roots, which is the amateurs and
Yeah.
developing talent and giving back. That's our way of giving back, to continue to work with the amateurs and help them achieve their goals and their dreams, which is to obviously someday become possibly Olympians and world champions.
Well, Manny, that's an incredible list of fighters that you've interacted with. But one that really piqued my attention when you said it is, I mean, you mentioned Hector Macho Camacho. Are you talking about Macho Camacho, the original
Yeah.
Macho Man,
The
or his
OG,
son?
the Macho Man, the one and only.
Wow, wow, wow.
I'm telling you, like as I said, I've seen a lot of people come and go, and may his soul rest in peace, of course. I worked alongside, well, my dad actually. I was just a kid. Worked alongside with Jimmy Montoya, which is their manager slash promoter back in the day. Very well known individual in the world of boxing, Jimmy Montoya, and he worked with the likes of Hector Macho Camacho and Juan Kid Mesa, and so many other greats back in the 80s. You know what I mean? And it's just, the list goes on and on. So just fighters that I've been able to work with myself, but also people that I've been able to meet throughout this time. It's just, it doesn't stop, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm blessed. It's a big blessing to be able to surround yourself with so many great people, great individuals. Not only boxers, of course, but different people, coaches, as I said, great cutmen, great coaches, teachers. Chuck Bodak, which probably to me was my dear friend, and probably possibly the best cutman in ever in the history
Yeah.
of boxing.
Yeah.
And Amilcar Brusa, and legends, living legends like El Señor Don Nacho Beristain and Rudy Hernandez, and so many other greats.
You know, again, an amazing sort of laundry list of boxing legends. But the reason Macho Man really piqued my interest, Manny, is, you said he was there in Azteca boxing.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
Absolutely. He used to train at Azteca. He used to work out at Azteca for quite some time.
And like you said, may God rest his soul. But I mean, I heard he was a handful to deal with, and I wanted to ask you, just
Yeah.
out of personal, out of personal interest. He's Puerto Rican. He's Puerto Rican, and as we know, the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans have a tremendous rivalry
Mhm.
in boxing. I
Mhm.
mean, was any of that rivalry sort of ever manifested in front of you at the gym?
No, you know what? It's funny, but uh, Hector Macho Camacho was a type of individual that people love to hate, right?
Yeah,
And he created all of that controversy. He was good at it. But when you met Hector, when you met the Macho Man, he was a great guy, great individual, down to earth, easy to talk to. But he was a special individual, definitely, most definitely. Another individual that was a great character in the world of boxing was El Maromero Paez. That's another boxer that I forgot to mention, that also trained at Azteca and was also trained, coached by my dad for a little while. So
wow.
that's another boxer that my dad was able to work with, and you can add that to his resume. That's another special individual. And look, we need characters like that in boxing. We don't have, in my opinion, we don't have boxers like that anymore. Boxers that can, that then type of boxers, that is, showmen that
Yeah,
can actually, talk the talk and walk the walk. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They're
yeah.
special. They're tremendous boxers, great heart, and obviously with both Macho Camacho and Maromero Paez were both different in the ring. They both have their own particular style, But outside of the ring, they were very similar because they love to entertain the crowd. They love to entertain people.
Well, speaking of, a lot of heart and being very macho, Coach Manny, what I wanted to discuss with you today is a situation that's become a very frustrating one if you're a big fan of boxing, especially the heavyweight division. And I think it's especially frustrating for the person involved. And I'm talking about Dillian Whyte. He's a guy who, since 2017, he's basically been the number one contender in the WBC.
Right.
He's done what he's had to do, Coach Manny, at least in my opinion. I mean, 27 wins. His only loss, like we discussed a little bit earlier, was to Anthony Joshua. 18 knockouts, refers to himself as the can man, down to fight anybody. Anybody
That's
can
right.
get it, he says, So, here we are, Coach Manny, in 2020, 3 years after he's become the mandatory, and he's still, now they're telling him he may have to wait till February of 2021 to get a shot at the WBC title, whoever wins between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. First off, kind of give me your opinion on Dillian Whyte and your opinion on that whole situation, why he's been sort of left to languish for so long.
Well, first of all, he's a great fighter. He's never in a bad fight. He's always giving excitement. And, in my opinion, he might have fought, because remember, he's already fought Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
But he fought him too early, because when they both fought, Anthony Joshua was not a world champion yet.
Right.
So
right.
they both fought, but it was it was not for the world title. That was a great fight, great exciting fight where Dillian Whyte actually hurt Anthony Joshua early in the fight,
He did.
Yes, he did, and then obviously later in the fight, Dillian Whyte was able to. Joshua was able to turn it around and get the knockout win. I believe if they were to fight today, Dillian Whyte would give Joshua a better fight, and that is because, as I've always said, you learn more from your defeats than you do from your wins. So I believe Dillian Whyte became a better fighter after that fight, after that defeat, his lone defeat versus Joshua. He became a better fighter.
Yeah,
we all know that because we've all seen him pretty much destroy everybody he's faced. But at the same time, he's been his own worst enemy because he did get tested positive at one time for illegal substances. So that set him back. But he's back now. He's had a couple wins after that. He fought on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Andy Reese in Saudi Arabia, which I was able to watch the fight. And
against Marius Walk, it was who he fought in Saudi Arabia.
That is correct, and he won by decision. This guy gave him a run for his money, but he was still able to go and do what he was supposed to do and win the fight.
And Coach Manny, he's actually won 11 fights in a row since that loss to Anthony Joshua. And the guys on that list include Derek Chisora. He beat David Allen, who's a decent kind of British level guy. Lucas Brown, Joseph Parker.
There you go.
Derek Chisora a second time where he KO'd him. And then Oscar Rivas, who's Oscar Rivas is a very tough guy. He's a very dangerous fight.
That's right. Hey, listen, let me tell you, he's due. If anybody's due, if anybody deserves an opportunity to fight for a world title, it's definitely Dillian Whyte. Yeah. He's look at all the fighters you just mentioned. I mean, how long does he have to wait? So I believe he's due. I believe he definitely should get his opportunity once again to fight for a world title.
Right now, and Coach Manny, they're saying right now that Deontay Wilder had suffered some sort of bicep injury, probably leading up to or during the Tyson Fury fight. I'm not exactly sure, but it may have been leading up to. If that fight doesn't go through, that's also something that Dillian Whyte is trying to throw his name in the hat for. I mean, what do you think of a matchup between Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. And
Great fight.
who do you think he matches up the best with right now?
You know what? You just mentioned Dillian Whyte versus Tyson Fury. That would definitely be a great fight. Like I said, Dillian Whyte has that type of style that doesn't run away from anybody, and he's willing to go toe to toe with the best. But I particularly would like to see him fight Anthony Joshua once again.
Yeah.
The first fight was a great fight, but I believe there's some unfinished business there. And again, as I said, they were both up, moving up in the ranks, if you will. We're back in the early days of their career when they were trying to make a name for themselves. I believe, in my opinion, they fought a little bit too early, but nonetheless, it was still a great fight. But if we were to see a second fight today between both of those boxers, both Dillian Whyte and Joshua, I believe we would definitely it would definitely be special.
And that's an excellent fight, and I feel like like you said earlier today, Dillian Whyte improved after his loss to Anthony Joshua. Do you feel in your heart of hearts, because you were there, I mean, you were there,
Yeah.
did you feel that that Anthony Joshua improved after his loss to Andy Ruiz Jr.?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, because now he proved to the world that first of all, he doesn't have to go out there and knock everybody out. Now he proved that he could box. He could float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, man, like Muhammad Ali. And that's exactly what he did the night of the fight when he fought Andy. He fought his fight. He did what he was supposed to do, which was to hit and not get hit. He was pretty much control the tempo of the fight, control the center of the ring. And he painted a masterpiece.
Yeah, I felt like, though, as I watched that, and, obviously you have a more trained eye than I do, definitely in the sport of boxing, Manny. But, I couldn't help but notice that when they were fighting, whenever they got in, like, mid-range or close range, I felt like, when Andy did land or when Andy did throw, Joshua just looked very uncomfortable. He looked vulnerable. He looked more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him in the past. Was I just seeing things, or is that something you perhaps noticed a little bit as well?
He did get knocked out, so obviously he needs to regain that confidence back.
Yeah.
He needs to get that back. He needs to get that spark back. That he did what he was supposed to do again in the fight versus Ruiz to recover his belts. But I'm intrigued to see what type of fight he's gonna fight on the next fight. Will we see the same Joshua that we saw versus Ruiz in the last fight? A fighter that's gonna go out there and box and not engage, or maybe engage but not the way he used to in the past.
Right.
Or will we see a fighter that's used to knocking everybody out like he once did, and just go out there and go for the knockout? He's a complete fighter.
Yeah.
His chin is questionable. We all know that, but his heart should not be questioned.
Yeah.
I think that these are two different things now. Having a chin, hey, that's one thing, but heart, I don't think anybody should question his heart. So, I mean, if he's tested, maybe he'll go back to what he knows, and that's what a lot of fighters do. A lot of fighters end up going back to what they know. They can work on something. They can, for a fight, they can come up with a game plan. They can change coaches at times, and the coach might want to change their style a little bit, or do what they have to do. But most of the time, we'll always see boxers, when they find themselves in a difficult situation, go back to doing what they know. So, that might be Joshua. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, Coach Manny, I mean, that comment there about the chin, you've really got me buzzing right now, because because I want to know, what you actually think about Anthony Joshua. I mean, do you feel that his chin is a little bit suspect, or do you think it's the heavyweight division, anybody gets caught?
You know what? Yeah, we've seen him get hurt before. I've
Yeah.
seen him get hurt versus obviously versus
Dillian Whyte, like we
Andy.
said.
That got stopped by versus Andy, and then Povetkin,
Ah, that's true.
uh,
That's true.
Klitschko, Povetkin, Klitschko, Dillian Whyte. You know,
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
him get hurt in the. He's even been stopped in the amateurs.
yeah.
You know, he's been hurt in the amateur. So but that again, going back to what I said, yeah, he's been hurt, but he's never quit.
Right, right, right.
You know, he never quit. You know,
And
with Andy, he got back up,
yeah.
and it was the referee's call. It wasn't his call; it was a referee's call. The referee's call to stop the fight.
And
You
some
know,
people,
somebody else might have stay down. Why get up? But he
yeah.
did get up.
Yeah,
You know.
and some people were questioning like whether he quit or not in that first Andy Ruiz fight.
Yeah, correct. Come on, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah,
At the end of
yeah.
the day, that's all that is. It's an opinion, but you gotta put yourself in that situation. Uh, it's easier for us people that obviously have had fought in the past, and know what it is to get hit, to get clipped. The same for everybody. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
That's what my pops used to say. Man. That's it for everybody. You can't play boxing, so
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
fact.
For
That's a
sure.
fact, and but I believe strongly that Anthony Joshua is a fighter to reckon with. He's proven himself time and time again, and not only that, but it's not only what he does inside the ring, but obviously what he does outside the ring, which is very important. The way he carries himself is, in my opinion, he's a top class guy, well spoken, well mannered, respectful towards. He's always been respectful towards his opponents, towards people, the crowd, the fans, and I love the way he carries himself. I'm a big fan of Joshua.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think he's definitely like a role model type
Oh, absolutely.
heavyweight.
Hmm.
Coach Manny, he's slated to fight, or I would imagine he would be slated to fight the winner of Wilder and Fury, or perhaps Dillian Whyte, or whoever gets that next fight. I mean, I feel like he
Yeah.
would be in line, but
Well,
for him to even get that fight, he's going to have to go through Kubrat Pulev, which a lot of people I think are sleeping on. I mean, what do you think of this matchup, especially
uh-huh.
especially considering
Well,
the way he kind of fought in the last Ruiz fight? What do you think about this matchup with Pulev?
well, don't forget about Charles Martin now, because we got the mandatory IBF. Charles Martin is the IBF mandatory challenger, so that's Cobra Pulev. He's
Yeah,
actually the mandatory contender now.
got you,
But
got you.
if Joshua gets through Pulev or vice versa, we should have next. We
I
should have the
see,
we
I
should get
see.
next.
And I wanted to tie in Charles Martin and say, I'm guessing after the Pulev fight, you guys would get the next crack. But
Correct.
do you think you guys would get the next crack? Are they going to want to go for the unified against the winner of what happens next between Fury and Wilder? What the heck do you think is going to happen there, Manny?
Money talks. Money talks. That's it. Forget about mandatories. It's all about money.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all about the bread.
How do you? Well, I mean, let's speak on Charles Martin for a second, because a lot of people wrote Charles Martin off after his loss to Anthony Joshua. But my goodness, he's turned his career around. He came off a
Okay.
very beautiful knockout of Gallo Negro. I believe it was in the 7th or 8th round in the
Hmm.
Wilder Fury 2 undercard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a guy to write off anymore. A guy that
At all.
you've been working with and has improved by leaps and bounds. Tell me a little bit about Charles Martin, Coach Man.
I'll tell you what. I love these type of challenges. I love it. I love these type. I love working with fighters like you mentioned, Charles Martin. That everybody had. Everybody thought. A lot of people thought that he was out. That he was done, and now he's been able to turn it around, and he's had a lot. Ever since I think we've worked together for his last 3 or 4 fights. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He's been able to stop every one of every one of those opponents, and including Gallo Negro for the title eliminator. So he's also been able to turn his career around. He's a different fighter now. And again, going back to what I said earlier, you learn more from your defeats than you do from your victories. And he's another fighter that lost to Joshua.
Yeah.
You know, his head was in the wrong place. He wasn't stable, the way mentally stable like he is today. So he's a better fighter now, and he's eager to learn and get better, and obviously become a better fighter. And he's hoping to get an opportunity to get a crack at the title, which he fought for the title eliminator and he won. So he deserves that opportunity, despite of what people might say or think, which is fine. I think every fighter deserves an opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you got to work for it. You got to work for that opportunity. You got to earn it, and we have. And so I'm pleased to say that Charles he's a different fighter now. He's mentally in a different place.
And physically as well. I mean, he just looked he looked way sharper and way stronger than I'd ever seen him before in that last fight, Manny.
Hard work.
So it looks like in his last 3 fights he's got wins. And the Gallo Negro fight actually ended in a TKO in round number 6. Again, that was on the Wilder versus Fury rematch undercard. Before that, he TKO'd Daniel Martz. Before that, he got a win over Gregory Corbin, who was disqualified for low blows. But before that, he had a unanimous decision loss to Adam Kownacki. Were you his coach at that time when he fought Kownacki?
No, you know what? It's funny. That's funny. Going back to that fight, what happened was I was working with Andy Ruiz back in the day. With Andy Ruiz was pretty much, he was broke, and they called us up. They were looking for sparring for Charles Martin up in Big Bear, and Andy was having to share difficulties, financially, and so we get the call. I get the call personally, and I'm like, hey, listen, I have Andy. He might be interested in coming up to make some money. And there was a perfect opportunity for Andy to go up to Big Bear. For us to go to Big Bear, they got his own cabin. They set him up. They, put money in his pocket and he was hired as a sparring partner for Charles. A lot of people don't know about that.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Able to obviously help out Andy and the situation. And then I established a good relationship with his manager, Mike Barreo, and then obviously his team, both Charles's team. I've known Charles ever since back in the day when he was part of the All-American Heavyweights and Michael King. So we have a good relationship. We're good friends. We were good friends then. Obviously, we're better friends now. And I was hired as a cutman because I also, work cuts. I, wrap his hands, work the cuts and whatnot. So I was hired as that specifically.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to coach. I'm not the type of individual that will ever step on a coach's toes, and I was just there to do a job, which was to work as a cutman, but I was able to be there, obviously ringside. What a great fight that was! He gave Kownacki a run for his money. Kownacki controlled the first half of the fight, and then obviously Charles was able to turn it around and control the second half, but it was one round too late. If that was a 12-round fight, in my opinion, if that was a 12-round fight, I believe Charles Martin would have won, because what happened was he dropped the first 6 rounds.
Yeah.
But he came back and turned around and won the second 4, or the second half, which is the last 4. So he was 2 rounds away from winning, or 1 round away from at least getting a draw.
No.
But if it goes, in my opinion, if it goes to 12 rounds. If that would have been a title fight, I believe he would have won the last 6. Not only the last 4, as I said, don't knowing it was a 10-round fight, but the last 6, and then he would have been able to turn around and maybe get a draw or a decision win. I don't know.
Gotcha. So before we continue, Manny, I just want to let everybody know we are going to be doing this live with Coach Manny Robles, one of the best coaches in the world of boxing. Every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific. Instead of just the Fighters Rep podcast, it'll be Keep It Clean with Manny Robles. So be sure to hit the subscribe button below, the bell notification icon next to it. If you do that, you'll know when we're going live. And also, big shout out to everybody in the chat right now: Chris Garcia, RGN's in the Granite, Davey L., Neil the Security, Jeffrey DeRowan, Think Cap. Thank you guys for being in the chat. Thank you for your questions. We'll get to some of them now. But before I get to that, Coach Manny, we briefly brought up Kownacki because of Charles Martin's fight against him. I mean, that's a guy who, I feel like a year or two ago, his trajectory looked like it was going up rapidly, and Prince Charles Martin looked like it was headed down dramatically, and now it's crazy how it's sort of flipped. I think if they fought today, right now, there would probably be no chance of Kownacki beating Charles Martin. What do you think of that kind of?
Would love a rematch. I'll tell you that. We've been talking about this before Kownacki's last fight, which he lost. And it's funny how things work out. Check this out. Kownacki lost his last fight, and he lost to the guy. If you look at his box rec, he lost Kownacki.
Robert Helenius. Yeah, he got TKO'd by Robert Helenius. Yeah.
Okay, Robert Helenius, right? And look who Robert Helenius lost to.
Right.
Before Kownacki. If you look at that.
Yeah, he lost to Gerald Washington. Yeah, he lost to Gallo Negro. Exactly. Wow.
So anything can happen in boxing, brother. Anything can happen in boxing, particularly in a heavyweight division. Everybody's one punch away from, everybody's one fight away from the big time. Well, in the heavyweight division, you're one punch away from the big time.
And that's
a lot of people, Gallo Negro versus Charles Martin, but he knocks out Helenius. And what Helenius do? He knocks out Kownacki. I mean, like I said, anything can happen. Anything.
Yeah, can you, Manny, you kind of cut out for that last sentence. Can you just repeat what you said there? We lost you for a second.
No, not a problem. What I said was, look, a lot of people question the fight between, the elimination fight between both Charles Martin and Gallo Negro.
Right.
But look at what Gallo Negro did to Helenius, Robert Helenius. Yeah. He knocked him out. And look what Helenius did to Kownacki. He knocks him out. You know what I mean? And then if you go back a couple of years, as you said, Charles Martin loses a decision to Kownacki. So it just shows you that anything can happen in the heavyweight division. And anybody can beat anybody on a good given day.
And what's really interesting about what you're saying there is, let's not forget that even though Gallo Negro lost to Deontay Wilder, got knocked out, I think it was in the 5th round, he was winning that fight. He was winning that fight.
As a matter of fact.
Right. So I would actually love to see Charles Martin get a crack at maybe a Deontay Wilder or somebody to that effect,
Right. Absolutely.
Manny,
and a lot of people don't know this, but Gallo Negro was actually, I brought him in and we hired him. I brought him into camp and we hired him as a sparring partner for Andy in preparation to the rematch versus Anthony Joshua. And I was actually, a little skeptical about taking the fight because he was actually giving us very good work in the gym.
Wow.
Versus Reese.
Wow. Well, so, him coming off that loss to Prince Charles Martin, I mean, do you think Gallo Negro still kind of has something left to give in this sport?
Look, unfortunately, in boxing, this is the way people view things, is you're only as good as your last fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's just how it is. I'm not saying that his career is over, but it's what people might think, oh, he lost by knockout, his career's over. But then again, anything can happen. You can turn around and win the next couple fights, and then he's back into title contention.
Right. And
Another thing about Gallo is that to my understanding, he's check this out. This is interesting. He's actually the not professional boxers can go fight at the Olympic Games now.
Yeah.
I believe that he's the representative for Mexico in the heavyweight division.
Wow. Wow.
What do you think about that?
That is awesome. That is really
Great.
awesome.
Great. Listen, I don't particularly agree with professional fighters going back to the amateurs, and the professional fighters should stay amateur. But in this case, Gallo's my friend, and I wish him nothing but the best. And if he gets an opportunity to go to the Olympics, hey, God bless. Good luck.
Yeah, typically I don't agree with that at all either, Coach Manny. But I feel like in a situation like Gallo's, I mean, he started late, right? He can probably use that amateur experience to better his career.
Absolutely. Why not? Why not? And for him, that is.
Yeah.
He's someone I personally know. And again, and that's another topic that maybe we should be talking about in the future. Professional fighters going back, going back into amateurs, and because I don't agree with that. But anyway, that's
I definitely, as a promoter for kickboxing, I don't like that at all either, Coach Manny. Right. We've got Chris Garcia in the chat, Manny. He says, Manny, when do you plan on getting your fighters back in the ring?
Oh, that's we gotta. You know what? Things are slowly starting to get back into gear now. I got a couple fights. I got a couple fight dates set up now. I have Chris Zavala, which a 6-round fighter now, maybe 1 or 2 fights away from moving up to 8 rounds. He fights on June the 16th in Las Vegas. And then I have Oscar Negrete fighting one of the Maloney brothers from Australia. I believe it might be the 25th or the 30th of June. So we're getting them ready for that as well. That should be a good, exciting fight. And Valdez, also from Colombia. Go ahead.
Coach Manny, Oscar Negrete. I mean, this is this is one of your champs.
Yeah, that's right. He's a WBA Intercontinental Champion, if I'm not mistaken, and we're trying to get an opportunity to fight for a world title. That's another fighter like Dillian Whyte that lost his first chance at the first title fight he had versus Vargas in a few years back.
Yeah.
But he's had so many great fights after that, and he's earned the right to fight for a world title, and we haven't yet to be given that chance.
Very nice. Well, congrats on him. I mean, I love watching the stuff that you post on Instagram with this upcoming stable of fighters you've got. And, he's Colombian. Is it more than one Colombian fighter you have in the stable now?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple. I also have Brandon Valdez, a young boxer. He's really coming into his own now. He's 21 years old. He's still a young man, but he fights like a seasoned pro now, man.
Very fast hands too, right?
Yeah, quick, slick. The way he's sitting on his punches, the way he's making his punches count, it's going to the body. It's just he's really come along. I'm really excited about him. He's got a fight coming up at possibly early July, second week of July. Tough opponent versus undefeated Dominican Republic fighter, puncher. And it should be an exciting fight because they're both undefeated, and it should be good. It's a battle of undefeated boxers.
Manny, you're talking June, you're talking July. I mean, do you think these things are gonna go through, Manny? I mean, what do you think about these fights?
I hope so. I hope so, man. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I'm just like everyone else is. You know what I mean? We're all keeping our fingers crossed. We're all back in the gym. A lot of my guys are back in the gym. Starting to getting back into transition, getting back into shape, and we gotta stay ready. Because promoters are gonna be calling. Like yourself, you're gonna be calling fighters out there. Hey, are you ready? You ready?
You better believe it.
Move on to the next guy. So you're gonna lose out on an opportunity to fight if you're not ready.
You better believe it. RGN's in the Granite is in here. He's a great fan of the show from out in Boston. He says, "Rip, rest in peace, Hector Camacho. Rest in peace, Macho Man Savage," referring to our conversation from a little earlier. Davey L. He says, "Good stuff, Manny." From an AJ fan. You're a real man. No excuses. Respect. He also says Dylan beat Joshua in the amateurs, referring to Dillian Whyte when he beat. I guess he did beat Anthony Joshua in the amateur level.
Check that out. And then again, they both fight in the pros.
Yeah.
And Joshua won. I would, again, going back to that, I would love to see Dillian Whyte Dylan Whyte get an opportunity to fight for a world title. I think he deserves it. You know, nobody's perfect. He's made a mistake, as we all know, but I think he's paid the price.
Yeah.
And he's earned the right to fight for a world title, and hopefully we'll get him. Hopefully he'll get that shot soon.
Yeah. We've got Jeffrey DeRowan in here. He says, basically Martin needs to prove it. Talking about Charles Martin, it's hard. He says maybe he's better, but he needs to prove it versus an Ortiz or a Whyte or a Povetkin winner. Here's the thing I would say to that, Jeffrey. Where was Andy Ruiz before he, got together with Manny Robles for that first Anthony Joshua fight? I mean, he was thinking of throwing in the towel on his career. So, I would say never really count a guy out. What do you think about that one, man?
No, like I said, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
And I respect that. And that's I love them type of situations. I love having my back against, working in a situation where I have my back against the wall because you have nothing to lose and everything to win.
Yeah.
The pressure's not on me. The pressure's on the other guy. You know what I mean? Or I should say the pressure's not on us. And, in this case with Andy, nobody believed in us and we were able to pull off. And who's to say that Charles Martin can do the same thing, or any of my other guys, or anybody that believes, really, because that's what this is about. Believing in yourself and trusting in yourself and having faith and knowing that, it's you against the world. And the beautiful thing is when you're able to prove the world wrong.
Yeah.
Special feeling.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. And there are only a couple guys in the heavyweight division that I could think of, Manny, that have improved after a loss. At least to me, significantly improved, and that would be Dillian Whyte and Prince Charles Martin. So and I feel the same way. I mean, that's why I bring it up. Before getting with you, I mean, I thought Andy Ruiz had kind of fallen off the face of the earth, to be honest with you, and I didn't know what was going to happen to his career. So never count a guy out, especially if he's being coached by Manny Robles.
I appreciate that.
And there's some mixed reviews in here. RGN's in the Granite says Ruiz needs to go back to Manny. Jeffrey DeRowan says, honestly, Robles did a good job with him. I believe Reynoso can maybe make him focus more. I'm a fan of Ruiz. Dude is hella dangerous. And then Davey L says Ruiz just couldn't stop eating.
That too.
Yeah. So, he is heading over to Reynoso, which I guess is Canelo's coach, Manny. Do you think perhaps he may find some success there?
I think so. I believe in Andy. It's up to the fighter.
Yeah.
It's up to the fighter. The fighter's got to want it, And I believe in Andy. I believe he's got what it takes. Again, as I said, nobody believed in us, and we fought Joshua for the first time. I knew what I was working with. Yeah. And the fight couldn't have come up at a better time because he had just fought April 20th versus Dimitrenko, a Ukrainian boxer fighting out of Germany. Very, had a good professional record, fought some of the best fighters in the world. So he was very dangerous at the time when we fought him.
Yeah.
And that was a great, consider this, that was a great tune-up fight for Andy prior to fighting Anthony Joshua. Yeah. So everything just worked out perfect. He had a new contract without him in a PBC. He gets a big fight date versus Dimitrenko. He had a co-main event that night. Looked great. Then we get the big phone call a week later from Eddie Hearn saying, hey, you guys won the lottery, man. You guys are getting a crack at the title.
Wow.
And so he only took a week off from that fight. So I was able to get him back in the gym. He was already in good shape and just continue working. Like I said, 2 months of training, the tune-up fight, and then we get Joshua. We get another month of training. It just worked out great. The worst thing that happened to us was, the 3 month layoff that Andy had after the Joshua fight, where, I found myself working with a different individual 3 months later. You know what I mean? Like, what happened to Andy? Who's this guy?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Who's this guy?
And, even it looks like Lou DiBella shares, those concerns. I mean, I sent you that article earlier today that was,
That's right.
I think, put out in the last couple of days, where Lou DiBella is saying, Ruiz has always kind of been a problem. And like you're saying, I mean, the fighter has to want it. If the fighter doesn't want it, what can you do? Manny, as far as the heavyweight division goes, I mean, if you had to rank them right now, and I'm curious, to hear your opinion on this. If you had to rank the heavyweights right now, I mean, who do you like best, maybe out of the top 3 or top 5?
Well, I would have to give it to Tyson Fury, because he beat the WBC super heavyweight undefeated champion of the world, and at the time, which was Deontay Wilder. And not only, it's not just winning, it's how you win. So the way he did it was remarkable, because I don't think many of us anyway, thought that Tyson Fury would be able to knock out Deontay Wilder. Vice versa. I was asked, if anybody can knock anybody out, it's Deontay Wilder. I took Deontay Wilder by knockout, Tyson Fury by decision. So what he did was great, fantastic. I would have to put him at the top. Number 1. And then number 2 would probably be Anthony Joshua, most definitely.
Yeah.
Why? Because he was able to bounce back from defeat, and a lot of people counted him out again, versus Ruiz. He's going to get stopped again, and so forth and so on. He was able to come back and win by unanimous decision versus Ruiz. And so he's number 2. And then after that, you can just pretty much, it's up in the... It's up in the air. You got you got a Joseph Parker. You have Ruiz. You have Deontay Wilder. Usyk, which hasn't had an opportunity.
Usyk, yeah.
Special fighter right there. And it's only a matter of time. Dillian Whyte. Man, that's the heavyweight division is. And then after that, maybe somewhere along the line in the top 10, you have fighters like Charles Martin. Definitely in the top 10, Charles Martin.
Yeah.
And then the heavyweight Cuban heavyweight
Ortiz.
Thank you, David Ortiz. Right, he's great. He's a great boxer, and I love Ortiz. I'm a big fan as well. Unfortunately, he's been stopped twice by Deontay Wilder. Like I said, that big right hand, and then, but he's still I wouldn't count him out. And then Kawanaki and so forth and so on. So the heavyweight division is on fire right now.
It's stacked. It's really exciting. You mentioned a lot of guys there. You also mentioned Luis Ortiz. I mean, do you think, Manny, at the age of 41, he's lost those 2 against Wilder? Do you think he can still kind of make some noise in the heavyweight division? Or
absolutely. Why kind of must? See, that's what people should not count out fighters just because of a loss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You should never not count out a boxer for a loss. Most fighters are able to come back from defeat and turn it around and become better boxers. And these are the type of fighters like Ruiz, Cuban fighter again.
Luis Ortiz. Yeah.
Jesus, sorry about that. These are the type. Yeah, I get excited. These are the type of boxers that they're crowd pleasers. They're always in a good fight. I don't think I've ever seen Ortiz in a bad fight. He's always giving great fights. And, I wouldn't count him out. No way, by any means.
Yeah. Well, Dillian Whyte, this show is supposed to be about him, but we get so excited. We've hit up we've hit on every heavyweight here. But Dillian Whyte is scheduled to take on Alexander Povetkin on the 4th of July, Manny, in Manchester Arena. What do you think of that fight? And
That's it.
it's for Dillian Whyte's WBC interim heavyweight title, which he is the interim heavyweight titleist right now.
That's right. Let me ask you a question. We'll touch on that topic in a second. But
Sure.
look at all of these fighters. Look at fighters like Dillian Whyte, fighters like Povetkin. How old is Povetkin? He's got to be in his 40s as well.
You know what? Yeah, Povetkin is 40 years old. He'll be 41 in September.
The new era of heavyweight boxers, right? Where boxers now, heavyweight boxers tend to peak in their 30s now.
Yeah.
You notice that?
That's
Not in
crazy.
their 20s like Mike Tyson, the great Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield and some of these the Muhammad Ali, of course, but it's different now with heavyweight boxers.
Yeah.
They tend to peak in their 30s. That's when they really come into their own and become great fighters.
Manny, you can't say this kind of thing while RGN's in the Granite is in the chat room. He's 49 years old from Boston. He's going crazy right now. He's about to fly out here and ask you to train him.
Thinking about making a comeback.
He wants to. He wants to.
Why not? Listen, going back to Povetkin versus Dillian Whyte, I was again, as I said, I was in Saudi Arabia. They both fought on the undercard with their respective opponents. But I thought Povetkin lost to Michael Hunter.
Yeah.
They call that a draw, but I thought he lost. I think maybe they had that fight set up already, Dillian Whyte versus Povetkin, and they didn't want to ruin the fight, so they gave him a draw, and now Povetkin gets a crack at Dillian Whyte. But if anybody deserves an opportunity, another fighter that we talk about, that we're talking about fighters that deserve opportunities, I think Michael Hunter.
Yeah.
I think Michael Hunter is the type of fighter that also he should also be in the top 10 heavyweights in the world. I believe that he can definitely give anybody a run for their money.
Yeah.
He's a good, and he's not a big heavyweight, and but he's a good boxer. He's got a great chin. He's durable and a good boxer, puncher, and he can definitely give Dillian Whyte a great fight. So if anybody, again, I believe if anybody deserves a crack or an opportunity to fight a big fight that level, it would be Michael Hunter.
And Manny, the interesting thing about Michael Hunter is, I don't know if anybody knows this, he was obviously a cruiserweight. That's why he's kind of a smaller guy. Right. And he fought and lost to Usyk, who also moved up to heavyweight.
That's right.
So, and my thoughts on that fight are, I thought it was close. I wasn't there, obviously. I thought it was close. I was okay with the decision. But I felt the weird thing about that fight was that Hunter, who, is the younger guy, I felt like he won the first half of the fight. And then Povetkin, the 40-year-old, came on, I think, in the second half of the fight. Is that what you noticed in that fight?
No, it was a good competitive fight. There was a situation where I remember that Michael Hunter caught him with a good, solid combination, and Povetkin went back. And was saved by the ropes. He was sitting on the ropes. So he was saved by the ropes. That's a knockdown.
Yeah, I agree.
And nowadays, you cannot be saved by the ropes. That was a knockdown.
Yeah.
And the referee saved him. That could have turned the fight around.
That's true.
That could have been a determining factor in the fight. Where it would have given Michael Hunter the win, and he was saved by the ref.
I just thought it was interesting, though, like what you were saying, how these heavyweights are peaking now a little bit later. I thought it was fascinating that a 40-year-old Povetkin, seemed to come on later in the fight. I would have expected him to start the fight out strong, and then him gas out, but it kind of happened the other way, which I thought was a little bit weird.
Interesting. And let's not forget that Povetkin was also in a great fight versus Joshua and hurt Joshua in the fight.
Yeah.
But again, as we know, Joshua was able to turn it around and win by knockout.
And, obviously you're a big proponent of the amateur game. You're helping with, the Olympians here in the United States. And, we've got, a guy in Povetkin. 2004 Athens Olympic Games super heavyweight gold medalist. He was a gold medalist according to his information here in the World Championships in Bangkok in 2003. So I mean, European champion twice. So I mean, a very decorated, crafty 40-year-old. Not going to be an easy fight for Dillian Whyte. What do you think about that, Coach Manny?
Yeah. No, again, as I said, I've known Povetkin for quite some time now. Actually, I found myself in Germany a few years back when he was, making his way up the rankings, and I thought he was gonna for sure become a world champion at some point. But little did we know that Anthony Joshua, of course, and the Klitschko's. I believe he fought one of the Klitschko's, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And remember this. Remember this about Povetkin. I also found myself in Russia, in Moscow, where Povetkin and versus Deontay Wilder. Remember that fight that never took place? Deontay Wilder was going to fight Povetkin.
Right, but then he
for
got
the world title.
He got caught with
tested
PEDs
positive.
or something. Right.
Exactly. So that fight that never was, and I found myself in Moscow working with a former Russian boxer that I worked with at the time, and I was excited for that fight. I'm like, wow, now I'm coming to Germany and I'll be able to see Povetkin versus Wilder. Well, it never happened because Povetkin tested positive. So unfortunately, I missed out of a great fight.
And I was really looking at that fight, Manny, because I was one of those people in the camp, and obviously, everybody has their own opinion, like you said. But I was one of those people that said, well, it's a good fight for Deontay Wilder because he hasn't really fought anybody. I mean, I didn't think any of the guys that Deontay Wilder had fought were that great.
Right.
And then I felt like once he stepped up and fought Fury, we saw what happened there. I would have liked to see him maybe get more experience before that step up. What do you kind of think about that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Deontay Wilder. You gotta give it respect with credit. You gotta give credit where credit is due. I respect Deontay Wilder. He's got a great right hand. I mean, he's like another Mike Tyson. He can knock you out with one punch.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Tyson can knock you out with both his left or his right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in this case with Deontay Wilder, he's got a big right hand. If you take that right hand away from Deontay Wilder, you're pretty much taking away 80% of his arsenal.
Right.
So if you take that right hand away from him, what do you got?
I mean, a 7th round TKO, I guess, is what we got that night.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I would like to see Deontay Wilder go back to the drawing board because I've said this before. What Deontay Wilder needs is a teacher. He doesn't need a coach. He doesn't need a boxing coach. He needs a teacher that can take him back and to work on the fundamentals, work on the basics.
Yeah,
I know it may sound silly, especially with the former WBC heavyweight champion of the world. How many title defenses did he have? 10 over 10 title defenses?
I think 10. Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine that? To go back to square one, go back to day one, and go back and work on the fundamentals. Work on the jab, work on the 1-2, work on the basics, and it's a fact. That's what he needs. If I was his manager, coach, I would definitely reconsider taking a direct rematch with Tyson Fury, and maybe go again, as I said, go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Work on that. Maybe get a couple of tuna fights in between. Let Joshua and Tyson Fury fight each other, and they get the winner of that. You know what I mean? And then fight in a year, but go back to those fundamentals that he so desperately needs.
I mean, do you think, Coach Manny, that he's, too kind of far along in his career to think that way? Do you think he's going to go that route, or do you see him just, sticking to what he knows and going back in there and going through with the rematch?
I believe he's got to humble himself. He's got to take a step back and regroup, and it has a lot to do with the people you surround yourself with as well. He's got to stay humble or be humble, as they say. So in this situation, I believe he's got to humble himself He's got to look at himself in the mirror, maybe watch his fights and realize that, hey, you know what? I need to work on my fundamentals. I need to get back to the basics. I need a that can teach me these things. Kind of like going back to the amateurs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going back to the amateurs and work on that foundation.
Yeah, and a lot of people in here seem to agree with you. We got Jeffrey Derone. He's saying he's correct about water. In my opinion, RGN's in the granite is saying agreed 120%. So you're getting 120% cosign on that one,
Wow.
Coach Manny.
I've never got that's an A. That's an A. I never even got that in school.
You see why it was a good idea for you to do this show with me, Coach Manny?
That's an A plus.
We're gonna both leave. We're both gonna leave this thing with a degree, Manny. Let's see. Then we got Robert Lopez in here. Shout out to Robert Lopez. Thank you for joining. He says, "Oof, heavyweight." He says, "Oof, heavyweight division is catching my eye. I'm 29. Are you telling me I have a chance?" Manny Robles is a great coach.
Let's do it.
For sure. Coach Manny, I've actually been on here for an hour with you now. So, I want to thank you for your time. I don't want to keep you any longer than this because I want to stay on your wife's good side. But but I want to thank you very much, for doing this with us. That was fun. I'm really excited to keep doing this with you into the future and, to see what we can come up with and where this goes, brother.
That's it. Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun. So far it's been fun. I'm looking forward to it, George. Thank you.
And Knucklehead Nation, if you're tuning in, again, this is the Keep It Clean podcast with Manny Robles, a.k.a. Keep It Clean with Manny Robles. You can follow Manny on Instagram at manuel.boxing. Give Coach Manny a follow if you guys are, serious about training and in the Southern California area or anywhere, really. You can reach out to Manny, I guess, through his Instagram. Is that a good place for them to reach you, Manny?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Same Facebook, Instagram. Same goes for Facebook. Manuel.boxing.
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 Manuel.boxing. And we gotta also shout out your gym, Manny. You're at Knockouts in Southgate. Is that right?
That is correct. The gym is, as we all know, it's temporarily closed for obvious reasons. The coronavirus. But hopefully, we'll be able to turn things around soon and get the gym open again to the public.
Sounds great, Manny. Well, we hope that happens, and we also hope to have you in the VIP of our kickboxing events again as soon as we get that rolling again, too. Anyway, Knuckleheads, thank you so much for joining us. Again, be sure to give us a follow. Manny's on Instagram at manuel.boxing, and we're at FightersRep. And until next time, Knuckleheads, keep it clean.
That's right. Keep it clean, people.
We're out of here. Have a good one, guys.
All right. See you next week.